Welcome to the Town of Goffstown Select Board meeting for September 22nd, 2025. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is the acceptance correction of minutes from 9/8/25, public and non-public.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 9/8/2025 public and non-public minutes with correction if need be.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. Do have a couple of announcements. Actually, just one announcement. Due to the ongoing fire dangers, the New Hampshire Governor and Council proclaimed today that there shall be no open fires and no smoking in woodlands. What this means is, Category 1 fires are prohibited everywhere except in campgrounds which has been inspected, meets the campground campfire specification, and has seasonal fire permit. Category 2, 3, and 4 fires are banned everywhere, public and private lands. No smoking is allowed in or near woodlands or on public trails. All fire permits are canceled, and violators of the proclamation this proclamation shall be subject to a fine up to $2,000. And is there anybody here for public comment? Steve? Name, address?
Good evening, my name's Steve Monier. I live on New Boston Road here in Goffstown, a longtime member of the community and a former police chief. I know tonight you're going to hear a presentation from the architects conceptually about a new police department. So I just want to say a couple of things about that. We built the police department in the mid-'80s, and I think we dedicated it in 1986 or 87. So within a few months, the original footprint of that facility will be 40 years old. When we built it, one of the questions I asked as the chief was, well, how long is this building going to last? The answer I got was, well, you're going to get about 25 years out of it. So I want to give you that background, that perspective, because it was huge for the community that we moved out of the basement of the town hall, where the police department was located before that. I actually started when the police department occupied 2 rooms in Station 18 on Church Street. The chief's office was in back, was also the booking room, and dispatchers worked in the front. So when we moved here in 1970, we thought that was a big deal, but we quickly outgrew it. And we knew by the early 1980s that we needed a new facility. So I'm hoping the board gives every full measure of support to whatever the end result will be in moving forward with a new facility. It is long overdue. Just to give you another perspective, Chief Eric Serino was probably in the 2nd grade when we moved into that facility. So he didn't have a lot of gray hairs then, but I noticed he's accumulating them now. The other couple things I just want to say about that, where the current PD is an ideal location because it's highly visible, it's on Mass Road, it's accessible to the village and also Pinardville, and everybody knows where it is. Unfortunately, you can't put a 2nd floor on that building. And the reason for that is it's a stick-built building. It's made of wood and plywood and composite board. The brick that you see on the north side of the building along Mass Road is veneer brick. So the whole structure, with the exception of the sally port and the booking and cell block areas that exist there now, are cement block. Everything else is just plywood and 2x4s. And that's the reason you can't put a 2nd floor on it. It would be nice to see it remain there, but it's going to be very expensive, I think, to have to temporarily relocate the police department while you tear that down and build a new facility. And I know that's one of the things I'll talk about tonight, but I'm hoping that there's some other place on Mass Road it could go. I know the town doesn't I don't think we own any property along Mass Road. But don't discount looking at maybe purchasing from a commercial person who does have land available along Mass Road. I know they're gonna talk about maybe relocating it down with their fields or near the transfer station on town-owned land. That's okay, but it's not ideal, it's not great. So don't discount looking at maybe buying some property. Now, a lot of communities have done that to build new public safety facilities. So I would just encourage the board to move ahead as quickly as possible. I think it's in CIP, I read for 2030, but you ought to move it up. You know, it's a very old facility and it's outdated and it doesn't meet the needs of the community any longer, nor the needs of the police department. One last thing I want to say. Police departments, police facilities are not just office buildings where cops work. They have specialized needs and specialized concerns. I don't think Citizens Bank has to worry about temporary holding facilities for their customers. Police departments do. They have to worry about evidence control and inventory. They have to worry about temporary detention of prisoners. They have to worry about sight and sound separation of adults and juveniles in those facilities. So it's a specialized building with specialized needs. Makes it a little more expensive, but remember what we're looking to do with that facility once it's complete. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Chief.
Is there anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. First up is the Goffstown Library Board of Trustees, reference the parking lot drainage. And that is on tab 4. Whoa, we go.
Great, that was a trip. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan Willow Evans. I am the Vice Chair of the Library Board of Trustees. I am filling in for Terry tonight, who could not make it, and she just wants to give you her regards and apologize for not being able to attend. As at your request, and with the generous help of Diane and Derek and Danielle, we have prepared a line-by-line breakdown of how the Library Board of Trustees is funding the Drainage Improvement Project. My understanding is that following the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, or Select Board's meeting, there was a question of where some of those funds were going to come from and a request for more specific figures. Well, thanks to Derek and Danielle, and our own Diane looking at the budget with us, we've reallocated $36,750 from our own budget without touching the donor bequests, which I understand were a major point of contention at the last meeting. That figure includes $10,000 from option 2, which I don't know if you're familiar with option 2, but it was an estimate. I'm sorry, not option 2, my bad. Actually, that was option 2. It was an estimate of about $10,000 between savings from staffing and, of course, associated benefits that we could allocate towards that. So that came to $36,750, and now we are here before you today in the hope that you will approve us for the remainder of $72.54, which includes, in my opinion, a prudent 10% contingency, which would come from the $11,000 some odd townwide benefits line. Of course, pending your approval. We think this approach honors donor intent while using the allocations we have responsibly. And we also have discussed it with the rest of the Library Board of Trustees to come up with plans in case we do go over or in case it does fall under. So I'm also happy to discuss those as well, but I wanted to present myself as a source of information for the Select Board if they have any questions. But I do invite you to look in your packet. The email that you have received from Derek is built using that information, and I think it outlines pretty well what it is we're hoping to use and where it's coming from.
Thank you, Jordan. My first question is to Derek, where it says 43,110 townwide benefits, and then after this, savings due to the vacancy at the library, sections of the current library staff. So this is coming from strictly library funds, or what was allocated to the library?
It's in the insurance line, which under our budget is a different department, and on the DRA form falls into a different category. But it is what we budgeted for the library versus what they have for actual selections from their current employees. Because when we do those calculations and even update them as late as, November and December, they had somebody leave right at the end of the year. They had a vacancy for a while and somebody came in. And there's been some changes in actual selection. So we anticipate there's gonna be that 72.54 savings in the insurance line that we had previously allocated for library benefits.
So hearing that, the complete $44,004 could come out of what was allocated for library.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else got questions?
So you said anticipate, so do we know for that for a fact already there?
There's always the option if somebody has a change of circumstances where they have a qualifying event, if they were to have a child, if they were to get married, that they have the ability to change their selections. But there is sufficient savings if that were to happen, to pay for that out of the town benefits line. But this anticipated savings is based on nobody changing from this point forward.
Go ahead.
My only frustration with this, and I'm gonna use the word frustration, is that last time we talked about using, I don't know if it's bequested, bequeath, whatever the right word is here, using some of those funds, and I'm not seeing any of that here. And that was a discussion last time.
So that's a bullet point at the bottom of the chart, is they've added in a 10% contingency, and then basically said anything up and above that, they would tap into those unrestricted bequests.
And we heard that the number was 6,000, not 7,254 last time.
Well, that's the addition of the 10% contingency.
I think that should come out of the bequested or bequeathed accounts. I think we heard $6,000 last time.
Which one are you talking about?
So on the bottom line, they were asking the town originally, last time they said $10,000, and then it basically became $6,000. Now we have $7,254.
I don't recall it ever becoming 6,000.
It was when we went through the
You
list.
wanting it to become 6,000.
So it was when we went through the list. That's what the number was.
We'd have to
No, they
review the
requested
minutes.
10,000.
I would want to review the minutes to see exactly what, we could look at it now, but, I don't see, personally, and I'm not gonna try and influence it, but this is coming out of funds that were allocated for the library now. They're not asking for the town to dip into their funds, is that accurate? Except that you gotta do the transfer because it didn't used to be that the benefits were all put together, we did that.
That change was made probably, I think, in 2017. We
Yeah.
made that change where all departments, insurance moved over from the
Right.
individual departments into one line.
Each department, up to 2017, had their own insurance lines. So you can see, so in 2016, you would have saw these funds in the library line. So you're really not, because of the change that was made, we're really not taking anything from the town coffers, the town side coffers, it's just coming out of the library coffers and the town, so.
Yeah, here's my second problem with it. The original request last year was $40,000, not $44,004, which I believe the budget committee reviewed, reduced down to $20,000. I can absolutely see us doing $40,000 total. So that was the original request last
Nope,
year.
that was a different project entirely. Now you're talking about their repointing project. Or their window project, my apologies.
When I looked at the CIP the other night at the planning board, this was one of the discussion points where it came up and what it got reduced to. So if you're saying that that's wrong, that's fine.
To my recollection, that is incorrect, yes. What the budget committee acted on was to reduce a request for 40,000 to 20,000, planning for the library to seek a grant to make up the difference. That's my recollection.
You were on the budget committee last year, so.
Yes.
And Kelly's not here. So, Mark, you got anything?
Nope, I'm just trying to figure out the numbers here as to what is correct or incorrect, that's all. I'm pretty much floating along right now to see what the end result is.
Jim?
No, I don't have a problem with what's proposed. So, I'm just curious, your complaint are two that, how much should come out of bequest rather than this way?
Because there was an original proposal last time we were here that some of that money was gonna come out of that.
But why does that make a difference, actually?
Because we may have other contingency and this also isn't validated, correct, Eric? This is an assumption, assuming that nothing bad happens.
Well, isn't everything that?
Well, no, I don't understand. You mean the.
7,254, you said that that's the projected funds.
That's the projected savings that we're gonna have in the insurance line due to, when we compare it against what we budgeted for library versus what they are taking for current offerings. There are other departments because of changes in health selections, as well as vacancies, that there are other savings there, as well as any of our employees that opt out of insurance actually provide a savings to the town as well.
So if I understand what you just said, if something should come up, we have the funds to cover that.
In the insurance line, yes.
In the
it's-
insurance line.
Yeah, again, we budget for insurance based on our current employees and what their current selections are at the end of the year. It's a snapshot in time. We have people that have unplanned weddings, and they go, all of a sudden, they're on a two-person plan, or we have people that, they have a child that they did not make us aware of until, the very last minute. So, yeah, we have that happen all the time.
Okay.
And if it goes over 44,000, it comes out of the bequest, like you.
That's what I'm hearing, but they're already putting a contingency in here of 10%. So do we have accurate numbers on the quote?
I believe it is 3251, and then the 10% contingency would be 4023.
So I think my recollection is, when the chairman was here last week, she provided that they have gone out to contractors and they have gotten quotes, but again, they haven't signed contracts for anything. And they, again, once you actually get into it, when you're doing the electrical work or you're doing any of the work, there could be surprises. So they had reached out to contractors and gotten quotes and broken down the project, but they don't have contracts in place.
I think that, that flooding could be dangerous with all the kids that are traveling around in there, so I am going to move that we approve a budget line transfer of $7,254 from townside benefit line 1550000-43110 to library building maintenance 5501000-5360 to fund the library parking lot drainage project as presented by the Library Board of Trustees.
Second,
I have a motion from Jim, seconded by Mark. Further discussion?
I think that we should remove the 10% contingency.
So you're trying to make you're trying to make a motion to amend the motion.
Correct.
Is there a second for that? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstaining? 410.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jordan. Is the police chief coming up now? And you're gonna be using this, Derek?
Yeah, you don't have to, you can, if you move a little bit off to the side.
Good evening, everyone.
We did.
If I could just give Mr. Chairman a quick background before the presentation starts, if you don't mind, sir.
And who's with you?
Two gentlemen from LaValle and Brensinger's Architects, Bob and John.
Last names?
So Bob Robichuk, LaValle Brensinger, I'm the civic studio leader and lead public safety planner.
And
I'm John Adams, I'm the project manager at LaValle Brensinger, and I focus on public safety.
thank you. Go ahead, Derek.
So just real quick, before they start, just wanted to give everybody a reminder. Back last year, the board, we've been really talking about a new building since 2019, really trying to figure out what's the best steps, or the next steps for the Goffstown Police Department, how we can get there. Last year, towards the fall, the board basically approved an RFP to go out for a space and needs assessment. That RFP went out, it was approved. This board last year approved this architect company to come in and put together this project. And we've been working with them for a couple of months now, and they're here to present, at the end of the day, their findings. They're gonna show you guys our current setup and then what 2 new site locations would look like. But basically just give us a 30,000 foot idea of where we're at in the Goffstown Police Department. My predecessor had spoken earlier. I think he knows more about building a new building than I do, and he's really, what he said really is resonating with me as far as we've outgrown that building. I think most of you know that, you've been there and seen it, but something needs to be done in the next, few years. But this is the first step that the board wanted to see. So without further ado, I'll let the gentlemen present their presentation.
All right, so Bob Robacek, LaValle Brensinger Architects. So our firm really, our civic studio really, as John said, focuses on public safety. We're working with a series of New Hampshire communities as well as some in Maine as well, and a couple in Mass. But we're out of the mill yard, we're 18 minutes away, we're local guys. We took on this process, a hard act to follow, gentleman behind me, who gave a pretty good summary of some of the things, but we're gonna get a little deeper than that. So, just really quickly, so we were retained about 4 months ago, I wanna say, right, John? Or 4 months ago. We had a deadline to try to meet, that's basically now. So we pushed a lot of information to that point. And we looked at the existing building condition report. We did build upon the Stantec report that was a couple of years old. We went a little beyond that. Not that much had really changed since then, but it was valuable information. We did, the one thing that's kind of not up there is we prepared a space needs assessment that John's gonna talk about. We worked with the PD, the command staff, to develop a current 10 and 20-year program, space needs. John will talk about that in a minute, because we don't want to plan a building that's going to be obsolete the day it's built, right? You might smile, but it actually happens quite a bit. People will build a building and 3 years later are putting people in closets, right? We also looked at the site evaluation. That was a key issue in this process. Looked at the current site, the proposed site. Again, John's going to go over that in some detail together with myself. We reviewed infrastructure, site access, easements, wetlands, topography. A police facility has very specific, not only building needs, but site needs. And John's going to talk about that as well. So I'm you, John, tonight. And in the feasibility and study concept, so we took the space program, space needs analysis, took the sites, looked at the sites, and then we came up with the concepts that we're going to show you, working with the chief and the captain and the command staff. I want to just say one thing, that whatever we're doing is, whatever we have done is basically based on sound operational requirements for a modern police facility. And it's changed tremendously in the time I've been practicing, and even the last 10, 15 years has changed tremendously. And it's not so much about a Taj Mahal or anything like that, it's about operational requirements and building 20 years at least into the future. These buildings will last 40, 50 years, as the current one is, and they're not easy to add on to because of what's in those buildings. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to John, and I'll pitch in as needed.
So what I wanted to talk about first was the existing building. The previous chief stole a lot of thunder from our presentation, but I'm going to fill in between. So we were able to visit the building, did some visual observations. We talked to the chief about the pros and cons of both the buildings. Some of the big points were parking and security. It doesn't have any. The existing building cannot be accommodated second floor based on the structure of the building. Yes, it's wood frame or whatever, but the actual foundation won't support a second floor either, so we can't go up without major renovations. The existing building also doesn't meet standard codes for most or all police and fire. It has to meet a risk category of 4, which basically says that a hurricane, earthquake, anything, the building will withstand some of those items.
So I'm gonna pause for a sec, so, because we're architects and we're gonna speak just archibabble at you folks, IBC is International Building Code, risk category 4 is the highest, there's a 1, 2, 3, and a 4, right, John?
Yep.
And 4 would include things like hospitals, fire stations, EMS, dispatch, emergency operations centers, and police. So these are infrastructure critical elements that would need to continue operating in case of an event, as John said, a hurricane, an earthquake, and other things of that nature. Anyway.
This is a presentation, but don't hesitate to ask questions
Yeah,
as we
please.
go. So I'd rather have a conversation, just sort of talking. But a couple other items were department adjacencies. So in a police department, there's certain departments that need to be next to each other. This department currently doesn't have it. Records is kind of scattered throughout the building. The main entrance is, again, could be improved. Training room, there is really no training room is required to nowadays standards. And then lastly, deferred maintenance. We also did an assessment of the building with our art office and our mechanical and structural and civil. We put a report together and determined what needed to be done to just keep the building functioning as it is without any sort of changes at all.
And we did cost load that, I believe.
So, yeah, we can get into that, but with that said, with all that, any questions so far?
Anybody got questions? Seeing
Okay.
none, move on.
So as Bob said, in order to start this project, we needed to come up with the space needs of the department. So we provided a questionnaire to the chief and his staff. They provided answers, and what we did was determined what those department needs were so that we could figure out what size this building needed to be. This program doesn't fit on just one site, it fits on any site. So what that means is that we could work this program into the existing site, we could work it on any site within the town itself. So what we determined was the existing building is roughly about 12,000 square feet. And what we found with a projection of 20 years is the building really needs to be about 28,000 square feet. So it's drastically undersized from today's standards.
How do you determine square footage?
So it's based on, so again, there's typical things. You got booking, you got property evidence, you got investigation patrols. It's all determined on occupants. And then we have a standard room size. So we've been doing this with multiple towns where we've figured out what the efficiencies of those rooms are, and we apply them to other towns like yours. So,
Is it based on a
for
number
instance,
of police officers? Is it based upon a number of residents? How are you determining?
No,
it's based on officers.
Yeah, so there's a projection in the program for staffing increases. The issue is more that the current building, so it's almost 13,000 feet when you look at the line, it's not 12, but is that it doesn't really operationally function to any modern policing, is that right, Chief?
Yes.
So that's a big problem, so even if you were to do nothing but stay the same size forever, which is not the case, you're growing as a community, you would still probably need to add several thousands of square feet to what you have now, just to stay the same size and not look at the future at all. But as John said, we developed these metrics by working with multiple communities. We're working with several right now in New Hampshire. And these are tried and true metrics for things like what's a booking cell, what's a booking area, what's a training room, things like that. Records, evidence.
They're standard size, like a cell's usually about 8 by 10. We got a Sally port, it's either a single or double, so there's certain sizes that we have to work with for circulation around cruisers and things like that. There's a lot of support for the police, so they're needed, they're not wanted, they're needed. The other part is administration, which could fluctuate from town to town based on the amount of officers in the department. So you can go through this whole entire list, and 3/4 of it is a need.
Jim?
Yeah, first time when I ran for select board, I went over and toured the police department, and the first thing the chief told me was that their property and evidence room was way too small. And I see that the amount you have allocated for space for property and evidence is smaller than what is there now, and I'm curious about that.
Yeah, we can answer that, so.
So The easy answer is with modern filing, we use high-density storage. So you could take a room of, say, 2,000 square feet, you can use standard shelter, okay? Or you could take a room of 1,000 square feet and do high density and still get the same amount of storage. So high density basically multiplies it by 125, 150% larger than what the room really is.
As long as the
So-
chief agrees with it, okay.
Yeah,
I'd have to see it in person, but yes.
Yeah, when you say high density, are you saying you're converting to digital?
No, high
No, no, no.
density are the ones, the rolling machines, where you see it a lot in like administration and county, so.
you
it's
might
been-
see it at your doctor's office. I mean, it's a sample, I'm not saying it would look like that generally in the police department. But first of all, we have a large evidence area as well for things like bikes and motorcycles and things like that. So that's not a part of that, regular storage. And within storage, I guess we're getting into the nitty-gritty. We have things like general storage, short-term, long-term items, firearms, valuables, drugs. So we account for all of that within the breakdown, right? But right now what they have is there's evidence everywhere. I mean, I don't know, Chief, you can speak up, but there's evidence everywhere in the building, right?
I've seen
Scattered
it.
throughout, yeah.
And shelves collapsing, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah,
So my question would be in record storage. As we go digital, here we're doubling the size of it. Digital doesn't reduce that?
so that's another great question. Currently by law, and again, I'd like the chief to speak up on this, you cannot digitize everything. You have to have paper records for, really forever.
Arrest reports.
Arrest reports forever, like not 7 years like your taxes or whatever, forever. So with evidence, it's a little bit different because you can have evidence for a trial, you can have evidence for a certain time. Generally, I think the chief will tell you how long she holds on to an average evidence piece or the captain in the back. But generally, some of that evidence, once it's no longer, used for anything, is usually destroyed, whether it's a firearm or whether it's something.
agree with that.
But records, like some of the records you have to hold forever.
And the other thing, Pete, is that we've looked into digitalizing our evidence, and we worked at it at a town level, and we were able to determine that there are certain things you can digitalize, which we are, from 13 on, but the old stuff, in order to archive it, we need certain Adobe archiving software that is a little bit above my head, but Brian looked into it for the whole town, and I think there's a cost factor there, and then there was a cost factor of who's coming in and vetting all the records that need to be digitalized. Right now, we just have boxes of records everywhere in our PD, and I think all you know. So, I think to your point, some of the digital stuff will help us out, but there are stuff that we do keep permanent records on file that are paper.
And you can't use outside secure storage? I know there's companies out there that do that.
You could, I would say that we have to really do some hard vetting on who does that, because you're talking police records that are protected by CJIS from the FBI.
So you want to get clear certified.
All right, anybody else, good questions? Let's move on.
The other part is we looked at parking requirements, so we went and worked with the chief to figure out how many cruises there are, how many cruises need to be indoor, outdoor. We determined how many visitor parking spaces. So all of this information helps us kind of figure out what the site requires. And it also helps us figure out what size the site needs to be. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but what I wanted to do is just kind of give you guys a general idea of where we are, where we've gone. So with that said, what I'd like to do is start looking at the concept for the existing site. In the top left corner, we have benefits. In the top right corner, we have some drawbacks. I'll try to highlight some of those, but what we did was, big picture, we tried to look at the site to see what we could salvage. The two main entrances from Mass Road, we want to salvage those because we want to maintain two means of egress out of the police department. To the left, we have visitor parking. We wanted to maintain that as well. In the back, we also tried to maintain the parking as best we could. We did reconfigure it slightly to make it a little better than what it is so that we can maximize parking. So what they have now and what we're providing, we have a few extra spots. This plan right here does not meet all of the program that we've provided. Some of the drawbacks are temporary facility. That's probably the largest hurdle of this project, is that if we were to do work here, the police department needs to go somewhere else because this thing's getting torn down. The other thing is, again, parking. There's no secure parking on this site right now. And then lastly, the existing property cannot accommodate a two-story building.
Just curious, how long would you estimate we'd have to be somewhere else?
This particular building, it could be in the ballpark of 18 months.
We have worked with departments, especially fire departments that are relocated, one right now in Lebanon. They have huge apparatus, a little bit different animal than this. It is definitely doable to do. The other thing I wanna point out, because we have a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm sure you guys have other business, is that when you design a police station and you do it the right way, you wanna separate your public parking away from your police staff, both sworn and civilian. And you wanna separate it from your auto impound. That separation needs to be handled. As John said, you wanna have a minimum of 2 means in and out in case one gets blocked. In an emergency, you can't be blocked in. So, the site actually sort of works pretty well, but it falls short on visitors parking, as you'll see. But just wanted to mention briefly, what are some of the parameters that we look at as public safety architects when we look at a site, right?
Yep. So, we did 2 options with this one. We did one option to minimize site work so that we can minimize costs. We also looked at another one. So the other one is basically adding a third entrance, which is basically to the right. And then what we also did was modify the retaining wall in the back so that we can maximize parking. So what this plan does is it provides all of the parking required for PD, secure PD parking. Visitor parking will always remain the same at 24 parking spots. We were trying to achieve 40 parking spots for visitors, but based on the site, again, there's some compromise and where do we want to meet it. I think 24 was a fine starting point with this. So basically, a lot of the same from the last site is the same as this one, but this one has parking for police.
Is there secured storage?
Secure storage, well, there's secure storage within the building.
No, exterior. So
You're talking about like auto impound?
Yes.
Yes, there is. We'll get into that in a minute, yes.
Yep, so you could see over to the right where there's 6 parking spots. That,
Right there,
A
yeah.
little lower, in the gray area.
Oh, right here.
Right
That's-
there.
That's auto impound
That's
right
auto
there.
impound.
Okay, covered?
Yes.
Yes or no, it's something that we work out. Typically, no, because we have property processing within the property evidence area, so that's indoors. Those will be outdoors,
Fenced in?
fenced in, absolutely.
Right, fenced in, and a lot of times when we work with departments, sometimes they have their impound somewhere, totally somewhere else. And we say to them, and the chief will tell you, some of them are trying to be CALIA certified, if you know what that is, or, so we say to them, so we go, well, your impound is like a, 5-minute drive away from your station. Oh no, but we have cameras and lights. Well, that's okay, but you really want that impound, which is usually criminal evidence or accident evidence, to be as close to your station as possible, not 3 miles away somewhere. The choice of a lot of people is to put a DPW, or something like that, because they have a lot of land there. Right. So, not here, but in general.
So the additional 17 spaces, they couldn't be applied to the visitor spaces? Just have a
Because the
walkway?
security area starts at the bend there.
So it's all gonna be fenced in there?
It's
Yes.
gonna be gated
Yeah,
and fenced,
there'll be a gate over here,
Yeah.
and there'll be gates over here so that public can't get into that
Correct.
area.
And there will be a signage saying visitors entrance, which is the one to the left. So.
Just to let you gentlemen know, I have a public hearing scheduled in 2 minutes.
Oh geez, okay.
Or you can just postpone that if there are people in the room, just let them know that we're gonna.
We can make sure to do it in 10 minutes, we can speed it up,
Anybody-
sorry.
yeah.
Our apologies.
That's okay, go,
Right.
keep going.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so
One more
other-
question. In the top right, existing, am I on the right one?
Yeah, existing is not large enough.
Existing property cannot accommodate a 1-story building, which
Correct.
means the only thing you could put there is 2 stories, right?
As you'll see in a
I
minute, correct.
just took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, okay, so.
As you'll see in a minute.
So, as I was gonna say is, this is the 2-story building. And then what we have to the right is a 1-story, so half of it's covered parking, the other half is indoor training.
So that means demolition and 2 flights.
Correct, and you'll
It's the
see
only thing that can
you'll
go
see the
there.
drawing in a minute, you'll see that.
So what we did was, you see a lot of boxes. Within those boxes is providing a list of what spaces are gonna be within those boxes from the space program. So what we've done is we've taken the 28,000 square feet and we created these adjacencies working with the department and making sure that the circulation works with their day-to-day, use. And then we came up with the main entrance over here, which creates a man trap off into a lobby. You have dispatch and records for service windows. We also have a training room, which then could be used during regular business hours, after hours, because it's segregated between the business and the front end of the building. So what we like to try to do is kind of create an onion within these buildings. The front portion is only common space for public. The rest of this back space is only for PD, and if visitors need to come, they can be escorted. To the right, we have an indoor training and then covered parking. You can see that we have a 2-car sally port and then a couple bays for property evidence for processing.
Just so we
So
mentioned
this
about
is-
bulk evidence,
This is really a firing range, not just a training room. Training for firearms. Would
It's-
that be accurate?
Yes, so
Well, I
we
just want to
like,
make sure we,
we like to use keywords,
But it's not,
safe words.
it wouldn't be the only thing, because I think as we expand with our defensive tactics and other police procedures, we would need a bigger facility. Currently, when we do defensive tactics, well, our range is outside down at DBW, who have done a great job helping us. When we do defensive tactics, we have to go find somewhere else to do it. So we're either at Parks and Recs, we're asking a jujitsu gym to help let us use it for free. So it's not just, there is some benefits to indoor firing, but it's also a bigger facility for us to be able to get cars in there if we need them.
I was gonna just say.
when I'm looking at this plan, when the public is looking at this plan, they're going to see indoor fire range supplies, instruction area, armory, firearms, cleaning, and ammunition storage. That means this is a firing range. And if it's going to be used for something else, that needs to be changed.
We can add to it.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Because
Yep.
this doesn't spell out what the chief is saying. This is saying this is a firing range.
Yep. One of the other benefits to this is the training room. So what we try to do, what we do is we provide a training room, 30 people or more. Anything 30 or less, basically the town will be paying for training.
So do you wanna talk about that at all, that hosting training, getting free training?
I mean, real quickly, when we do have the space to host trainings, our agency gets free training. And currently, we don't have that.
Right. The other thing I was gonna say about the firing range or whatever you wanna call it, training, because this training firing range, is that it has an overhead door. First of all, it's a separate piece of the project. It could be done later, it could be done at the same time. It is physically separated across the covered parking area for police vehicles, for quick dispatch. But we have overhead doors, you could do training, the way Chief said, you could bring in a car in there. You could do low light training you can do smoke, you can do a lot of things that are situationally correct, rather than if you belong to a gun club, you just go to the range and you just shoot some rounds. So it is tactical training, that's probably the correct term to use. Anyway,
Primarily, the second floor is administration with a little bit of support for the PD. So we have fitness and lockers upstairs. But primarily, we have the administration and we have investigation. To the right and the left, the white spaces, that's just flat roofs. So
Would that roof structure below where that is, would that be buildable if they needed space later on?
it could be that way if you want it to be that way.
Not just, okay.
I mean, it's definitely doable.
So we planned this for
Yeah.
20 years out already, but that could be a consideration once we
Yeah.
get to the next level, yeah.
All right, thanks.
That's a good question.
We've also done some exterior perspectives just to kind of give you an idea of what the building could look like. What we like to try to do is use maintenance-free materials like precast concrete base, brick veneer. In the back, we try to use a little more efficient materials so that we can save money in certain areas and spending in others. So what we like to try to do is develop the envelope as best we can, spend some money on mechanical systems, and then spread the money out throughout the building so that we kind of balance it properly.
So the top view is basically you would be facing the street. It's it's really a conceptual diagram. The back is what you see, is the back of the building by the retaining wall. And what you're seeing, the wall on the left would be the firing range training facility. The other one, the glass piece is, suggested entrance. One of the things with the police station is you don't want to have a lot of fenestration on the ground level, and you surely don't want to have it in your booking intake and your evidence area, so the windowing is a little bit more limited on the ground level, so.
So here's an isometric looking at the overall. So once we go to the next site, you'll see the difference in sizes. So this is a 2-story compressed site or compressed footprint. The next one is a new site, new building. So what we did was we looked at the town fields. So it's right off of Elm Street. The town suggested a location down in the middle over here. And what we did was, between our office and our civil engineer, we had to determine how to get to that site. So again, we have an access road, main access road, that is currently a dirt road. This is about 2,700 feet long to the police department. We also looked at a couple other accesses through DPW. There's definitely some drawbacks having to go through DPW. So again, these are options. And then the town also owns a piece of property that could be another potential access. So I say these because right now, if you don't do those options, there's really only one entrance to the police department. So there's one way in, one way out, and if there's something wrong with that road, you get some problems.
And that's the access road number 1.
Access road 1 would be the only access.
Which is 27.
2,700 feet long. So keep in mind, the road, the utilities to the project were not budgeted within the project itself.
That was gonna be my question.
The police department shouldn't be responsible for providing a road to their facility. We thought that DPW, the town, could absorb that or something like that, so.
So what you're proposing is the town build a road, up 2,700 foot road,
Yep,
and then another access from someone, and going through DPW is a terrible idea.
yep,
Because this does get plugged up in this area on a
Yep.
Saturday, and you have an emergency vehicles trying to get out through the public would be kind of difficult, I think.
so, yeah, so with those points, we said, how can we simplify this? So the next option is that we looked at the top middle portion. Now we're closer to Elm Street. Now we're only 450 feet, which is more ideal. It can be seen by the public from Elm Street, and it can still work based on the program. There's a few things that we need to work out through DPW, as we discussed with Derek and the chief, but this is an option that could work for the town.
Where is the fields?
Fields,
They
yeah.
just built a big parking lot down there.
So
Where is that?
the fields are just south.
The parking lot
So
is
the parking lot that
Oh.
just got built is under where that's proposed?
Yes.
So you.
here.
Yes.
It's right there.
The parking lot we just built is underneath that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And it'd be,
I see.
where would the parking be for the fields?
You would have to do that as part of this project. You'd be relocating that as well.
So you just set up a nice flat site for the PD.
For parking for the rec field, yep, you're right.
It is a nice flat space.
In their defense, when we talked about this initial site, right, I never even thought of this. They had mentioned it, and it was kind of one of those things that they said, we looked at this site, never really, then Derek and I talked about it, and like, oh yeah, this is for rec, but it's something to think about long-term, if we're gonna go that route. This is an option that the town potentially could utilize, so.
If you were to go with the first option, that the road would be expensive. We don't have a value on it, but again, 2,700 feet long, you gotta do subsoils, you gotta do asphalt, you gotta do utilities, so really, if we could get the building closer to Elm Street, it would be more ideal for the town.
Any estimates on how much you think that would cost?
For the road,
So
Yeah, road and
so when Adam went to the budget committee last week, an urban rebuild of a road that's already there is $2 million per per mile. So you're talking half a mile, but that's also, you'd have to put in the
It
utilities,
doesn't
so.
include utilities.
Correct, so you're talking millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars.
One thing to keep in mind is though, with the existing site, new building, you need to have temporary facilities. We're working with the town of, our city of Lebanon. It's a fire department, keep in mind, but their temporary facilities is upwards of $1.5 to $2 million.
For 2
anyways.
years.
So again, you're either gonna spend it in temporary facilities or spend it in a road and you have more value. You're not gonna lose it. It's always gonna be there. So again, there's some pros and cons for both options. So similar to the existing site, we were able to do a one-story because we have more space. So every police department really requests everything to be on one floor, and this is what we were able to do. So I'm not gonna get into all of the circulation, but the circulation is very similar to the last option that we did. And then we also looked at the outside of what the building could look like. So we wanted to give you guys 2 examples, one that's a traditional modern, and this one's more on the modern side. But, you know, again, it's
It's just a concept at this point, you know.
Yeah.
Frankly, in our scope, we didn't even owe you guys this, but we thought it'd be interesting for you to show you something. But there's a lot of, if you go back one slide, John, I'm almost done, is that there's a lot of positives to this site, other than the road issue. It's flat, you do a one-story, so no elevator, no stairs. You can have all the parking you need, you can meet all your parking requirements, right, John?
Yeah.
You can do a clear separation of public versus police vehicles. All that is much easier because it's a large flat site that's wide open, you know. So there are some positives to this. I can't comment on location because that's really
That's a
the
negative.
decision. Yeah, it's a decision for the select board in the town, not for John and I to say that, I think. But unlike the fire department, we have a service response radius on GIS heat mapping, police are on the road, so you're generally out there driving around, you know, but location still matters to some extent, I guess. Anyway, thanks for listening, I just wanted to share that.
Can I go back to the first presentation? There's a 2-story, does that include an elevator?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And 2 stairs.
Yeah.
I missed it.
So 2 stories, again, you're adding 2 stairs, an elevator, you're talking about probably upwards of like 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. You multiply that by $700 a square foot in the range. That's your dollar figure of a 2-story, where we can take that money and apply it to a 1-story, we don't have to. Yes, the footprint gets bigger, but this is what every town, every police department wants in 1-story.
If they can get it. Because of their
It's in a
site
perfect
constraints.
location, you know.
Yeah, well, on site constraints, right, everybody wants that, but they better be able to get it, you know.
So this is probably what you guys are really interested in. So what we've done is worked with an estimator, deferred maintenance on the existing building. This is just strictly maintenance, nothing else. It's about $1 million to bring it. So that's mechanical, electrical, architectural features like, you know, rotting siding or disrepair brick or, you know, it's a number of things.
But it's not to address operational deficiencies. That's the key thing. It just addresses deferred maintenance.
One big factor with the existing building is there's a lot of ADA issues with the building. It doesn't meet half of them. So that's another reason why a new building would be really great for the town. So again, the existing site, new building, we have an estimated price of $29.5 million. Again, that does not include temporary facilities.
So before we talk about that, if you read the top line, we asked the chief and Derek, you know, what they want to index the budget for. Because we're at a point right now where we have 4 to 5% escalation per year on construction costs. So we picked mid-2026, so roughly about a year from now. You know, I want to just point that out, because it does change every year, and it's compounded at that escalation every year, you know, so, anyway, I'm sorry, John.
So as we go down, so the first site, which was basically with the long access road, that was 27.5, not including the roads or the utility. And then the one closer to the road is 27 million.
Not including road utilities.
Again, both the same options.
Why the $500,000 difference between the two, besides location?
It was location, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that because of grading, like?
I don't,
Grading,
that's a great question.
driveways, things like that.
Do all these estimates include CCTV, all the actual electronics costs and everything else that is going into the building?
So there's certain things that the town is required to maintain, so radio tower, any sort of CCTV, that's basically what we do is provide a conduit, and then you guys hire a consultant.
So none of that cost is included in here either?
No.
Just
The only-
talking
the only
$30
is
million
not-
project.
The only is not included really, we had allowance for furniture.
We do have furniture in here.
We had allowance for, soft costs, design fees, geotechnical exploration, survey, testing during construction, material test, things that go into soft costs, right? We do include some electronic stuff, but generally, our departments work with a vendor that does kind of two things for them. One is the car key systems that they use for access.
Right.
And then, of course, CCTV. That's, I know usually, you may or may not include dispatch consoles. I can't remember what this one particularly did or didn't. But what is included in the budget is providing all the termination points for those. And then the vendor just comes in and, terminates at those areas.
The reason why we don't provide those is from town to town, city to city, the requirements vary. So in order to figure out what that dollar figure is, it would be challenging to do it up front without designing it. So we push that to the town, and it's typical for everyone.
No septic, no water, that's all on the town, right?
That would be town, so that would be part of the utilities.
Okay, next, anything else?
Yeah, just.
So next step would be community outreach, getting the community to buy into the project. We have a great staff on board to help you with community. So again, if the town doesn't know, they're gonna vote no, so we'd like to try to work with you and the town to get them familiar. So we could do some design shreds and figure out what the town likes, what they don't like, so that when you guys go to vote it, we could be prepared.
Well, I think it's more like presentations to the community. I think that we're kind of done with the design at this point for where we're at. But we can help present, change some of the wording if you don't, training to, so forth, but.
Well, we still have work to do, Eric, on utilities, getting, moving over the equipment, all that kind of stuff. There's a cost to that. We need to get an idea what that's gonna be. So as we look at the project, we need to know what the whole project is. Is it really a $27 million project, or is it a $30 million project? And I think it's important, before we go forward, that we know that. Whereas utilities are already in the old facility. They need
Correct.
to be upgraded. That facility, even if it goes to the second story, those is already there. There's natural gas near there, there's sewer, there's water, so we don't have to worry about all that on the other projects. So when we're looking at the difference of the $2 million, well, maybe it's not $2 million when you start thinking about bringing in your utilities and building the roads and things like that. Maybe not $2 million. So.
Right, I mean, if you're not asking, but if you ask our opinion, the existing site, while it involves a temporary move, it's probably a lighter lift, the only thing you'd have to do is do a patch from your tower,
They have
your
temporary
locations,
yeah.
Rather than moving.
And as the chief said, like ex-chief said, or Steve, that's a good location.
Well,
It is a great location, it's just unfortunate that the site is small.
I understand.
but a two-story, honestly, most buildings we do are two-story unless they're somewhere out in the boonies where, you have this big flat area you have over by the playfields. And that's not unusual to have a two-story police station, probably nothing else that provides that operational stratification between the first floor business part and then the upstairs admin and staff areas. But, there you just have to get another curb cut onto the road, and you got two already now, we kept both of them. It's a lighter lift other than temporary relocation for 18 months or 20 months.
Anything
Is
else?
there any resale value in used police stations? I know Manchester sold theirs.
It's a good site, it's gotta be worth something. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. I mean, we'll gather any other comments, but if, you know, we do owe the town one community meeting to present what we've done, and we can make minor adjustments to what we've done, for sure, including calling that a firing range. And the other thing about that firing range is that piece, is really a separate piece, just attached by the covered area. So it could be done later, it could be built later, it doesn't have to be built now. In the detailed budget, it's broken out separate, it's broken as a line item.
Yeah, we've designed it to face it
Yeah.
possibly, because that indoor training is roughly $1.5 to $2 million in itself, that's with everything in it. So again, there's some opportunities where we could shave some dollars off it, which kind of leads me to my last point, is project progress. So we're looking at this at a 10,000 foot level, so there's a lot of things that we're looking at. But to kind of fine tune some of that information, we would recommend going into a schematic design at some point in time, which will help you guys determine all the nuts and bolts within that building, and it's also gonna fine tune the numbers so that we can get into like all of your points, your questions of cost for utilities and all of it. So I think really that would be the next step for the town.
So you have none of that right now, it's basically all the outer shell and the location.
No, we have it itemized, but it's broken down, again, we're looking at blocks, and we're itemizing it based on other projects that we worked on during design and
Yeah.
construction, and we're using those numbers to come up with a number for this project right here, so.
Because you're gonna run, if you took the 2,700 foot one, you're gonna run utilities underground, it's gonna be
Yeah,
trenching and running all that stuff.
but I guess I'm asking, like, you have some idea of how many rooms there are, where the termination points are for the conduit and everything that's coming in, so you would have some idea of how many badge readers we would need, where the
We're not,
CCTVs would
that,
be.
we're not getting
We're not
that
at that
granular.
level.
We're looking at square footages, we're looking at building materials, we're giving like line items of certain things for, you know, card readers, but we're not figuring out how many,
Right.
it's an estimate. Again, we're at 10,000 feet, we wanna come down to 5,000 and start focusing on some of those important parts that,
Right.
you know, again, could fluctuate the, you know, the estimate.
So the other thing I wanna point out is that, yeah, the level of granularity you're talking about is another phase of design that we're not doing right now, but we're suggesting you might wanna do that. We definitely would benefit you to do that. However, I wanna be clear that the budget that we did with our estimator was based out of Bedford, you know, a couple miles away from here, has done over 10 to 12 similar projects with us at this level. And he is very well aware, just like we are, of what comparables are, to use a real estate term, what the comps are, for similar projects that have been done in the last 3 to 4 years, in the last 2 years, a lot of them with us, in New Hampshire, all right? So that's the level we're at right now, right? So to get to the next level, to do more detailed design and get a better, much more detailed budget, not necessarily better, just a more detailed budget, the level you're talking about, that would be the next step.
Which police station have you done recently that most mimics this size and layout?
Well, go ahead.
That's actually completed.
So the most recent one is Lincoln PD. They're not the same size of Goffstown, but
16,000
literally,
square feet.
you know, their building was 15,000 square feet, but again, they're a smaller office. But, you know, our estimator based his estimates on that, the numbers were spot on when we finished.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk to them on how much they spent after the fact on all those.
Well,
Their
everybody's
project-
different on that part, though. You know,
Yeah.
they're not gonna run 2,700 square feet,
No, no,
2,700 feet.
Their project numbers were 3 years ago. They got a great deal. Their budget came in, I think it was just shy of $5 million. They might have been all in for 6. But again, those are different times.
How do we get that?
I think that if we wanna try to get some ballpark for some of the things we're talking about, which are reasonable to ask, I'm sure the police department has vendors that they work with on your CCTV, your car key. You must have vendors right now,
Yeah.
chief? We can ask, work with the chief to get that, and get some idea of that.
That's for us to get down to the 5,000, that's what we need to do, the 5,000 foot look at. We need to get down there because we can go to the town, we can go to people and say, oh yeah, it's gonna be $27 million, but then when we get done, it's another $3 million for all the other stuff that goes with it. When we're looking at the old building and then moving it and moving out temporarily and then moving back, You know, we have to look at the whole picture.
One thing that we would recommend is, we would not recommend providing any sort of dollar figures to the public at all until we are very certain on that number.
That's what
Again,
that's what I wanna do,
Yeah, so again, what
We agree with you.
yeah.
we've gotten shot, or, we've recommended the town not to, but they did, and that number goes away.
It's on TV right now.
Oh,
It
okay.
is.
Okay, so it's already out there,
Oh,
those numbers are out there, it's
yeah.
on TV.
Gotcha.
So this isn't something that,
Yeah,
That's-
it is what it is.
it is what it is.
But I think it's good to be a little more granular. Some of that information comes outside of us. But if you have any questions on stuff that would be in the project, items that are in the project, if there's any concern that maybe there's a misunderstanding of what's in or what's not, we'll be more than, Chief will tell you, more than happy to oblige and work with you on that.
Are there
'Cause-
any other ancillary things that maybe we didn't mention that aren't in this projected cost? Like, I don't know, maybe the sell like bars?
No, that's all-
Those are all,
yeah.
yeah, if you were to take the building and shake it upside down, all of those are in the building. The radio antenna, CCTV, card access, so again, we provide card access terminations, but again, that's one, other than those three major ones, I think those are probably the big ticket ones that you guys want.
And our soft costs have included in, if you see the actual budget, not the one that's on screen, which I believe was shared, correct? Yeah. You can see in the soft cost, it's outlined what's in there, and there's quite a bit in there, including furniture and so forth, allowance for furniture.
We didn't provide that.
Oh, we didn't provide that?
No.
I don't have the
Not
budget
at
with
this
me,
time.
so. okay.
So we can provide an itemized list, so again, it's not really detailed, but it gives you the line items of what we've covered.
All right, I think we got enough information to get started, I don't,
Yep.
Steve, you've got some stuff, looking at Steve, is sitting
We're
behind.
sorry it took so long, we apologize, but hopefully it's good.
Yeah,
Great,
you've got
that's good to
some
hear.
things
Thank
to
you,
work on
guys.
Too, I think, right? Moving costs, tower, moving your equipment, that's all gotta be included when we go out there. So we have to work on that. Right?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like Jim, having been to the police station before, we need to do something. Like, hands down, we need to do something. Question I have about the $1 million in deferred maintenance costs. Did that include maybe updating the storage area while we get through all this process?
No,
How much would
just
that
strictly
cost to just
maintenance.
update the storage area, so at least they could get past the broken, like, I wanna call them like wood sticks that are down there?
It's hard to say, sitting here tonight, I don't
I mean,
know.
it might be something to discuss as we work
I
through it.
could probably get a quote
Okay.
from some of our local people that are carpenters and contractors, you know, have them come in and I can present that to you guys, at least for that.
That might help you a little bit while we get through some of this.
We did look at it in the past as an EOC. They had a grant that we were gonna do, but the fire department got a new building with a new EOC, so that ran up pretty quick. But we could definitely get you a quote. I can look into that for you.
Yeah, cool.
All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Thank
You're
you
not
very
going-
much.
Eric,
Sorry
you're
it
not
took
going
longer, but
Nope,
That's great.
it was good.
Do you want to go into the public hearing first? and then
Yes, we can do that, yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We did have a public hearing that was scheduled for fees.
Under.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, great.
Pursuant to RSA 41:9-A, the Goffstown Select Board is holding this public hearing to accept public input on the proposed update to the town's master fee schedule. Copies are available for any residents in attendance and on the town's website. After the public hearing, the board concurs with the recommended fee increase motion to amend the town's master fee schedule as proposed. So, is there anybody here for the public on proposed fee schedule?
Can I just mention one thing? There was one item that Adam added, I think it was either the day after the meeting or maybe 2 days later. You'll see on page 2 of 2 of the fees.
Yep.
He had proposed a new fee of $125 for a cremation urn vault. He actually, immediately after, I think it was the next day, they actually had a request for an oversized one, so we've added that fee in to reflect of what the cost would be. So we're basically passing that cost along to the resident that's using it.
Motion? I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept the proposed fees as amended this evening
Second.
be presented.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, questions? Go ahead, Josh.
Question. Since it was added after the fact, Eric, how long has it been?
So it was actually posted well before the 7 days, because we
Okay.
did it, he did it, we did it right after the meeting. So we were able to put on the website as well as the bulletin boards here, that new fee. So that new fee has been,
Just want to make sure we're in compliance.
Yeah.
So the motion on the floor by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any further questions, input? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
You're up.
All right. Thank you for having me back. This should be pretty quick.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
We missed you.
We're on highway safety,
Yes.
5B.
So, all set, Mr. Chairman?
Go right ahead.
All right, so Highway Safety met on September 10th. We discussed one request. This is a request from a citizen on Tibbetts Hill Road in the area of Acorn Drive, between Acorn and Ryan Road. It is I consider Tibbetts Hill Road to be an S-curve pretty much all the way up, but this particular spot, this citizen is very concerned with the amount of accidents that are happening by their house. And this last one, a car flew off the road, took out the mailbox. They weren't very happy about that. They have a relative who lives there that's handicapped, and essentially we did some a couple years ago, we did a traffic study that the highway safety did not do anything on, but since then, we've learned that we've had several more accidents. In fact, one was just this weekend right in front of the citizen's house. The data we're showing is basically 25% of the accidents that are happening on Tibbetts Hill Road are right in front of this person's house. Highway safety took that into consideration, went through it all, and essentially Adam came up with the idea of putting this says windy roads, supposed to be windy roads, sign, but basically an S-curve sign on each side of coming down the hill and then going up the hill towards there, which would help, we think, based on the data of the accidents, indicate and alert motorists that there is a dangerous windy curve in that area to slow down. This recent one we just looked at was a medical condition. Some of them are snow and ice, so they're sliding off the road. But when you look at the totality of the road, when you have 25% of the accidents happening in front of that residence, it seems to be a problem with alerting motorists.
Okay, your memorandum states, curve of signage or the lights.
that was the request.
Okay, so we're just going,
At this point, we're gonna do just signage.
Just signage.
After the highway safety, yeah, we went through and looked at it, we're gonna do just signage at this point.
do we have to have any more meetings on that?
You do not, but it would be helpful for you to direct DPW to install those advisory signs. It does not require an ordinance, because again, they are advisory signs.
Do we have a
Make a
motion?
motion to have DPW install curvy road or windy road signs
Curve signage.
before and after the curves on both sides.
Second.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. And you need a motion to ask the DPW to do it, or?
No, that's fine, that was sufficient, I let them know.
Excellent. I'm going to jump a little bit here. I'm going to go to 8C. We have people here sitting, we've been sitting here all night, so we'll go to 8C.
See.
Okay, so under the town administrator's report, you did have, this is for the granting an easement across the town's rail trail. Again, the Goffstown Planning Board approved 30-unit residential condominium development at 134 Mass Road. The plan requires permanent access and utility easement. You held, required 2 public hearings on August 25th and September 8th. The Conservation Commission did review this in accordance with statute and recommended the granting. The Planning Board also reviewed this. They provided no recommendation.
Correct.
Because they had previously approved the site plan. And the town attorney has reviewed the easement and is satisfied with the language in the easement.
Motion?
Make a motion to approve the granting of permanent easement to cross the town's rail trail, tax map 19, lot 47-6, Himley Investments LLC, owner of tax map 5, lot 54.
Second.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Mark. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. Okay, got that. Fire chief up next? That'd be accurate?
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good evening, chief.
I'm here tonight to talk to you about the tower pump failure on Tower 1. As you recall, in June, Tower 1 experienced a water leak in the upper pump housing while it was going through the daily check. When we had it checked by our pump servicing company, there was indeed a hole in the pump casing. We went and obtained an estimate from Legion's trucks for $43,423.89. I then went out and went to another apparatus dealer, Bulldog Fire Apparatus of Woodville, Mass., who I've had prior experience with. And when looking at the pump, we found out that instead of replacing the entire pump, we could retain the bottom half of the pump, which is, it's called the transfer case. The transfer case basically is where the transfer of power from the engine to the pump occurs, down at that level, then it hooks into the pump itself. They came back and gave us an estimate of $25,384, which is the reason for the savings there. While they're in there changing that out, they would put in a new pump impeller because of the the extensive work it takes to break that down, and given the age of the tower, it's to our advantage to put a new pump volute in on that. So I'm here tonight to ask the board for their approval for me to authorize Bulldog Fire Apparatus of Woodville, Mass. To repair the pump at an estimated cost of $25,384, with the understanding that the board knows that we don't know what they're gonna find till they get in there, but they're fairly confident that we should be able to stay in that
And if we
area.
don't replace the pump, it just becomes a ladder truck, right?
Correct,
Which is an option.
yes.
What bothers me is you get these things and then when you open them up, all of a sudden there's another problem and then we're back up to 43,000 and we thought it was gonna be 25,000, so
Right,
that scares me, And how old's the truck?
it's
10 years old, isn't it? Just about.
It's actually, no, it's gonna be replaced in 2030, so we're talking 15 years old. But also though, if you are gonna replace that pump, that does buy you, value in the end when you go to either trade it in or it could potentially down the road get you another, year or two as you get closer, because as you know what the cost of replacement tower ladder is.
Personally, I'm saying we use it as a ladder truck. I hate to take the chance of opening that thing up and all of a sudden we got a $40,000 bill. But I'm not a firefighter either. That comes from you, you're the man. You're the fire guy.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we spend $25,384.00 for the repairs that are needed to be made on Tower Ladder 1, a 2010 Pierce.
Seconded.
Motion, hold it, motion by Mark, seconded by Richard. I would put a stipulation on that, is that not to exceed.
I agree. Make a motion.
All right, well,
No, you don't, you can
no,
change your
I-
motion,
I
but
understand, no, I'll buy it.
Can I just say, though, it may take them a couple hours longer to get that apart versus,
That's on them.
okay, so they stop at 25,000.
Well, when do they stop? I mean, 30,000? 35,000?
Well, basically what would happen is they'll get in there, they'll pull it apart. You know, their goal is to replace it at that cost. If there's any other additional cost, they won't do anything more until,
They
you
come
know,
back
I
to-
would come back and
come back to
tell
us.
you what it is.
How long are they gonna let it sit in the shop like that?
Actually, the labor for it, they're projecting 40
I
hours.
get 40 hours, but my question is, you have to come back to the board, and if, like, how long are they gonna let it sit in the shop like that until you get an answer?
I wouldn't think it would be too long.
It could be 2 weeks, you know.
It could.
Derek, is this coming out of a specific budget line item that is already like bulging at seams, or?
So the chief right now will have to look at what he has for savings. Looking at fire, the one concerning line is overtime is at 91% expended. But he does have some savings in the regular wages full-time. And then his fleet maintenance, there is 27,000, but again, that's not for the entire fleet, so he's only spent about half of that. And I'm sure the chief can identify some other operational, if we needed to dip into another line. Looking again at the benefit line, right now, it's still a little early to totally project, but the benefit lines, we're probably gonna have about $100,000 to $200,000 in savings based on what our monthly expenditures are. So we could transfer them there.
And that's out of his budget area,
No, that's out of the
Town-
townwide insurance.
townwide insurance.
Richard, you got anything?
I would say that as long as it is stipulated that we're talking about a maximum of 25,384, that this is a prudent motion to make.
And not to exceed.
Yes, right.
Jim?
What Richard said.
Josh?
I actually think that it's gonna be tough if something does go awry. We're willing to give contingency for the library, but we're not willing to give a little bit of contingency here on ours. That doesn't make any sense to me either.
That's a big difference between doing that project and doing this project.
I understand that, but 6,600 for labor,
But he's gonna come back if there's overrun, isn't he? And
He is, I think, you have a delay till your next meeting. Your next meeting is in 2 weeks. Your meeting after that is 2 weeks after that, so.
yeah, I think that if it's like 42 hours, are we gonna waste our time on that? Like, I think we should allow for some variation. It's $165 an hour, like if they have the hours, so I think that we should at least allow some contingency on the labor hours.
The other thing I wanna add, and the chief didn't mention it, but I'll mention it, the tower ladder is up for a new tower in a couple of years. If we get the tower fixed where the pump is working, we've got some equity in it, and it'll get us the money we need. If we don't fix that tower ladder,
You mean the pump, not the tower ladder, the pump.
It's gonna go down, and, it could hurt us when it comes time to purchase a new tower ladder.
We get killed on trade-ins anyway, you know.
Yeah, but the tower ladders, to the best of my knowledge, when I've been looking on the phone, on the magazines, the tower ladders are still up, you know, $8, $9, $1 million, depending on how new or how old they are. You get some decent money for them.
Okay, so right now, the motion is not to exceed, Mark. You made your, changed your
I'll make
motion.
it, yeah, and not to exceed $25,384. If it does, they come back to us and we work it out.
Because you don't want to put any contingency.
I'll make a motion if that's,
Well, we have a motion. You might, you can, you'd like to amend that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend, to allow for up to 50 hours of labor.
Extra 15 hours, which is
10 hours of labor is what I'm saying.
10 hours of labor.
Yeah, $1,600.
$1,600.
Yeah, I'll second that too.
So it's not to exceed 26,984. Am I close?
Yes.
You okay with that, Mark?
Yes, sir.
So Mark's motion is that.
So Mark will amend his motion,
Mark
I'll
amended.
amend my
and
motion.
Richard will amend the
What's
second.
what's the total number again? Sorry.
It's gonna be, the total number is gonna be 26,984 if we add $1,600 to
Okay,
it,
good, thank you.
which is 10 hours of labor.
Yep.
No, that's less than, because it's 165 per hour.
Oh, okay, so you need another,
How far down the
50
waiting line
bucks,
are we?
$50, yeah.
add another $50.
If this gets approved, they're gonna, order the upper part, and,
Are they gonna fix it here or there?
no, it's gonna go down to Woodsville, Mass.
Okay, I was just
My
gonna,
question is, if they order that part and it comes in that we need to do a whole bunch more work, are we gonna get stuck paying for that part?
No.
For sure.
There, it says right in their contract that they won't do any, work until, any extra repairs until approved by us.
Right, but we pay for the part, is what I'm,
That's what I'm saying, if up front, we order this part up front, and they tear it apart and find out it needs another $10,000 worth of work,
So they're gonna tear it apart first.
can they
before
return
they
the
order the
part?
part.
I'm not gonna assume,
I would ask.
Yeah.
I would ask
They're
just,
gonna tear the pump down first, see what's there, what the amount, what needs to be done and stuff. And then they'll order the parts, but he
Okay.
said the parts are 2-3 weeks out, more,
No, that's fine, and that's a concern that, you get that, you order the pump, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, it needs this, but, you already paid for the pump.
Yeah, because almost 19,000 of it's just the part. So like if they're gonna tear it apart and the part isn't needed because we find out it's a ton more,
right.
then at least you're not spending 26 grand. You're spending more like 6 grand.
No, they definitely gotta drop the pump first to see,
But a lot of times people order the part first, do the work, and then put it together.
yeah,
So the total amount is $27,034? Okay. So we're clear, okay.
Okay, so that's how we're at. Right, Mark, $27,000 for $40, $30?
$34.
$34.
27, what was it?
$27,034.
034.
All right, got it.
That's Mark's motion. Richard? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
chief.
Go ahead, Derek, you're up.
Thank you. At tab 8A, you have your meeting scheduled for the next 2 weeks. On Wednesday at 6:30, Historic District Commission, will be
Yep.
down, Grassmere.
Yep,
7 PM, Conservation Commission will be in this room.
Yep.
On Thursday, 7 PM, the Planning Board will be in this room.
Yes.
Next week, on Wednesday at 6 PM, Economic Development Council will be in this room.
Yep.
And Wednesday at 6:30, the Library Board of Trustees.
Got it.
Your next page, you have your consent agenda, employee status reports. You have a per diem EMT new hire. You have a per diem paramedic. This is advancement to them getting their paramedic license. You have Parks and Recs. So this is all the end of seasonal employee separations. You have 1 summer grounds, 1 head counselor, 2 counselor 1s, 4 counselor 2s, and 3 counselors in trainings. And then 5 lifeguard 1 and 3 lifeguard 3s. And then you have in admin, you have a full-time bookkeeper, successful end of probation. You have a special event permit for Millennium Running, the annual Manchester City Marathon on November 9th. And then you have rights to inter on West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, Section W2, Lot 85. West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, the cremation, Section 5, Lot 216, and then Lot 217. And then we also added the proclamation for Constitution Week as well.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Richard. I have one question. When I was signing the employee status reports, they're all dated for 9/12. When did they actually stop working?
Most of them started working before school started back up, because the lifeguards, they
Or when
stopped.
did they close the pool?
I don't have the exact date.
But that's what it would have been there.
Yes, so this was a housekeeping item that we were just taking care of, to
Okay.
inactivate them.
So there's a motion on the floor by Josh, seconded by Richard. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
So we already took care of 8C. At tab 8D, the DPW director is seeking board's authorization to submit a grant application for the New Hampshire Used Oil Collection Assistance Grant application. This is one that we do every year, so he is seeking your approval to submit the application and to also further authorize the DPW director to execute any documents.
Make a motion to apply for and accept the Household Hazardous Waste and Used Oil Collection Grant funds and enter into grant contracts with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And to further authorize DPW Director Adam Jacobs to execute the documents which may be necessary for these grants, applications, and contracts, which may in his judgment be desirable or necessary to effect the purpose of this vote.
Second.
Well, Jim hasn't seconded anything tonight, so maybe you have.
I just
remember.
did, but.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
At tab 8E, you have a proposed circuit rider contract for professional planner services with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. We have a planned medical leave coming up starting in October through the beginning of December. So this would provide coverage for up to 16 hours a week or up to 64 hours per month with a not-to-exceed cost of $9,400 a month. There will be sufficient savings in the full-time wages and related benefits that will cover this expense. And again, this is to really provide that expert of the review of the site plans and subdivision plans, working at the staff TRCs and also providing support during the planning board meetings. This is also a very important time for planning board as they go through their zoning amendments, because that process begins in November.
So will this person be full-time, basically?
No,
No,
16 hours
no,
a week.
16 hours, so
Six-
how are they gonna cover the request during the day and the meetings?
So it's gonna take a meeting with Patty up in the planning office to organize that. We're going to work with IT so that they will have a generic planner's email address so that they can kind of stay on the same page. But they're just gonna be coming in for planned meetings and review of those plans.
And so not attending the meetings at night?
No, it's likely they will be attending
Okay.
the planning board meetings, and then they also have an assistant planner that is possibly going to cover the EDC meetings.
Okay.
If all of a sudden if the planning applications coming in become more voluminous, then what we could do is I could move over and man EDC, and we would have, not have them cover EDC. So it'll be based on what we have coming in for applications.
Patty's covered this office for how many years? I mean, she's been there enough that,
240, I think.
huh?
240, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the circuit rider coverage agreement with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission and to provide the coverage of a professional planner during the planned absence of planning economic development coordinator.
Second.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Jim. Anybody got questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed, abstained, motion carries.
Your next item, Danielle's going to speak to you about the 2024 MS 434. This is the revised estimated revenues. When we prepare the budget for the following year, we project revenues, and then in September, we get the opportunity to revise those estimated revenues on what we see based on what we're actually seeing for our receipts coming in and other known quantities.
Thank you. So the MS 434 revised estimated revenues, we have, over the last 6 or 7 years, really been making an effort to be as accurate as possible during the budget process with our revenues. Unfortunately, I think we've gotten a little too good at it, and our gap has gotten smaller and smaller. So as you'll see this year, we are expecting, with our projections, to come in just over at about $50,286 above what we had originally projected. And when you're talking on a $9 to $10 million scale like we are, that's only at 0.69%. So very close. It could have easily swung the other way, and it technically still could. However, we are hopeful that the Meals and Rooms tax will come in perhaps a little bit more than anticipated. We still have to wait for those final figures from DRA during the tax rate setting process. I didn't itemize every single item in the memo. You can see it on the line by line of the MS 434, but this gives you kind of highlights of the areas where we were seeing a larger swing. So motor vehicles, even though we had brought that up, we are thinking we'll be able to finish the year at about 50,000 more. Increased interest on investments, that's always hard to determine what the market might do, but we think that will be, based on how it's trending, another 50,000. Increased highway block grant, that's a known figure, that's why it's so exact, 11,576, higher than we had expected. That money has been confirmed by the state, so we know that's a good number. We've reduced some areas, you'll see here, sale of cemetery lots in general has just been down this year from years past. Recycling revenue has been down as well. The timber tax and yield tax, that completely depends on what projects are done and what clearing of the land is necessary, so that has been brought down based on what we're seeing for actual projects in the queue. And the reduced sale of vehicles and equipment, because the town budgeting process eliminated all of our CIP essentially, except for the roads and the 3 police cruisers. We didn't have a turnover of equipment, so we didn't have that revenue from selling off the older vehicles. So that's down by 30,000 as well.
Danielle, I just did the math. Is there another $1,000 missing somewhere? 'Cause it
There's
looks
a
like-
lot. Yeah, this is only the highlights. We changed, I think, 40 different lines. So we didn't put every single one, but if you look at the MS 434, we actually go through every single line and increase or decrease each one. So this was just the highlights of the general, the big items to kind of call that out. It's not an exact to get to the 50,000. The 50,286 is the final detail number.
Okay.
And then we will get
Because I got 51,826, obviously, so you have more.
Yeah, we have more up and down through the different lines. And we will get an MS 434R, which is the final version, the revised version that comes from DRA. Once they review all of our numbers, we have to justify any changes that we're estimating. So DRA looks at those line by line, and they let us know if they agree. And then they also give us the final figures on the Meals and Rooms tax. So that could be potentially a little bit more. But based on what we have for information to date, we're expecting to come in about 50,000 more than we had originally projected.
Okay.
Do we need a motion on this?
No, this is prepared by the finance department and submitted by the finance director, so there's no.
Any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Danielle.
So the next one, Danielle has a recommendation on the 53rd pay period.
How did you budget this?
So this was not budgeted. This was supposed to be budgeted in 2026 because there are technically 53 Thursdays in 2026. However, the very first Thursday is January 1st, which is a bank holiday. So when we have a bank holiday, we date our payroll the Wednesday prior. So it would be dated 12/31/25, which is a unique opportunity for us to utilize savings within the 25 budget to make the payment in the current year. It would then match the W-2s, because no matter which budget year we hit, it has to go on the W-2s based on the check, the date that the check is cut. So it really, to me, makes more sense when we look at it. It also saves us from having to budget an extra year in 2026 as we go into the budget season. We do have savings. I know you've heard it a lot tonight about this benefits line. We projected the benefits based on current enrollment as of today, so we calculated everything out. We do understand there could be some changes from people either, getting married or having children, or we had one today, I got a phone call saying, oh, so-and-so quit, so we're gonna have a little bit of a gap there while there's a vacancy. So there are changes that occur. A payroll for 1 week of pay, obviously we don't have the exact number of overtime known or things like that. Those are variables that will come in when the payroll is actually processed. But based on our average payroll, as you see every week on the warrants, it's a couple $100,000. We do know that there is enough savings based on our current enrollment to cover that, and actually to more than cover it. We're expecting it to be closer to 500,000.
Okay.
And we would also not be, so we wouldn't have the standard health deductions on this one because it would be a 53rd week, so the town wouldn't have
So you save that.
that expense
Okay.
that we put in as well.
Motion?
Motion to authorize the finance department to post the 12/31/2025 payroll check against the 2025 budget and make any necessary budget transfers to individual department wage lines to cover the actual payroll process that week.
Second.
Motion by Richard, seconded by Mark. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries.
At your next page, you have a proposed financial policy. This is a refund of motor vehicle fees policy that was prepared by the finance director. To provide you a little bit of background, earlier this month, we had a former resident that did online registration of their vehicles, and they ended up asking for a refund, which the state of New Hampshire DMV does not do refunds. So what they did instead is they had their credit card cancel the transaction. And what we found out is we did not have the sufficient disclaimers through EB2Gov, our online partner, to prevent a credit card from seeking that cancellation. So what we've gone ahead and done is create a draft policy that speaks to the purpose and applicability of how this would be actually administered.
Is this the only place where we accept credit cards?
This is not. We also accept credit cards for dog registrations for vital statistics. That we can simply put as a disclaimer on the EB2Gov, but because motor vehicles has specific laws related to refunds and DMVs, we felt the policy was necessary for at least the DMV portion of it. But we would be working with Interware to update the entire
We
site.
need to do that across the board?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the refunds of motor vehicles fees policy as presented.
Second.
Motion by Josh, seconded by Mark. Any questions, discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. The old business action calendar is getting kind of empty here. Not a lot on there. Unwheel dump,
Yeah, I actually have an update. I got an update from DPW today. Vehicle 355 is still out of service and to be determined. The other two shown on here, 358 and 372, are back in service. And then they've got two other trucks that are out of service, but unfortunately it's got just the truck number, not what they actually are. It's got one that is at Kentworth for ongoing engine and after treatment codes, and one is some damage to the dump body. So we have those, so they have basically three that are out of service.
how's the body get damaged?
It doesn't, I don't have that level of detail.
All right, any new business?
Yeah.
Go ahead, what you got?
At the last planning board meeting, we went through and made a motion to approve the CIP proposed schedule that came through. I think the one thing that kind of came up is that we didn't have anybody from the departments there to speak to it. And I really think that we should have more context on some of those. I also think that looking at some of those schedules, I mean, we had one discussion around the school like layout that went like kind of all over the board, and concerns about how much is going to be requested multiple times here in the future. So I do think that we should be prepared for any of those things that come forward, people having questions about those as well. But I do think in general, like, it felt like in that process, we didn't have a lot of answers to questions being made by the planning board because we didn't have anybody representing the departments. And Mark, I think you were there that night stepping in. I don't know how you feel about it.
I agree with you. I mean, there was a lot of wishy-washy. It just didn't seem to flow.
Well, my question to that would be, why are they going, if department heads to make their presentation to CIP, and CIP is the one that goes to defend their CIP budget. So that's kind of duplicating the work if you have department heads come in to CIP and then make them come back to the planning board, because then they're going to come before us, so we're going to discuss it with them. How many times do they need to do that?
That's fine, but I think the other problem that also happened that night is that not all the representatives of CIP were there.
That's right.
and you basically had other people of the CIP filling in for those roles, which made it difficult to ask questions.
That's something we'll have to talk about. We can't, too late now, but something we can talk about, I think.
So if the
Down the road.
CIP representative isn't there, I think the person of that department should be there for it.
There's really no reason for CIP even to go then, if you're gonna have the department heads there to answer the questions. I've served on that, I've served on both sides, I've been there. I think
Go
that's,
back to the old days, Peter.
I know, but still, it's CIP's job to do that. If they wanna be on the CIP committee, then they should be performing their duties.
I don't disagree
But
with
then
that
there's no
either.
reason to have a CIP committee, just have them, make them do the presentation to the planning board. All right,
With the
so we'll bring that up,
departments.
that's go in the future, too late now, but
Yeah,
I think that's a good subject to bring up. Anything else?
nothing from my side. Yeah, the budget committee met.
Yes, the budget committee did meet. Can't say we really talked about much of substance except for things that have already happened. We did a little bit of a recap of the road plan, how we ended up making the first decision we made, and what ended up occurring with the residents of Laurel Street and nearby streets as well. My brain can't think of anything relevant to this meeting, though.
Did we exceed the budget? That was, no,
No.
that's our job. Our job is to decide where that money goes. I know-
I just thought it would be helpful to explain the rationale of how it got there, hopefully as a lesson for the future.
Good enough, I get it. Anything else? Derek, you have non-public?
I do, yes.
Mark?
Make a motion to go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, hiring, is that it?
Yes.
Second,
That'll conclude, I'll take a vote.
yes.
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 That'll conclude tonight's public portion of our meeting. We'll be going into non-public now. Thanks for watching.